The purpose of the play is to help people catch a glimpse of the historical Jesus. The truth is that Jesus had a powerful ministry and said a lot of things that are extremely important. And what he did in his life and ministry, even though it was brief, even though it was short, that were spectacular in his culture, in the first century Judaism that he, as a Jew, that he was a part of.
Do you mean like the miracles that he did?
No, I'm not talking about the miracles. I'm talking about the ministry that he had in addressing the needs and the problems of his own society to bring revitalization. His society was made up of people who were 80 to 90% were on the edge of poverty, on the edge of falling through the cracks, on the edge of not being able to make it. They were barely subsisting in an economic way. The economic justice of the culture was very, very poorly balanced in favor of the haves versus the have-nots. Jesus knew that in his society there were so many barriers that were erected that basically said, you are outside of God's favor. You have no hope of having God's favor. If you're a woman, if you're a Gentile, if you're a slave, if you're poor, if you're ill, you have no hope of finding God's favor virtually. And Jesus said, that's just not right. That's not true. That God's love is much deeper than that, much wider, much stronger. And Jesus took his ministry to those who were outside of the barriers of his culture and addressed those issues and let those people know that they were included in God's love, included in God's favor. And it revitalized, it transformed his society.
Excuse me just a minute. I don't quite understand what you're saying. Are you saying that people thought, I mean, if someone was a woman or someone was sick, that they thought that God was against them?
The society and culture said that if you are ill, God is punishing you. Your illness and your disease and your lack of wellness is God's punishment against you. Your poverty, the level that you are in life is a result of how God feels about you. So the poor are not to be pitied in the extent that God still wants us to help them out, but the truth is that it shows that they're outside of God's favor.
Wow.
From the perspective of the culture. Jesus said that's just not true. That's not true at all. That God's love is much greater than that. It's much richer than that. It's much wider than that. It's much broader than that. It's much more inclusive than that. And Jesus' very ministry was to those who were the outcasts, to those who were disenfranchised, to those who were pushed outside the barriers of what was thought to be the delineation of who's in God's favor and who's not.
But surely the temple priests wouldn't have thought that way.
Very definitely they did. One of the things that you hear in the play when the priest's coming up, when he's saying to Jesus, you're ministering to these people and that's all good work, but we know that these people are where they are and their life is the way it is because that's what God has brought upon them.
Well, what hope did these people have?
Virtually none. Absolutely none. They had absolutely no hope of ever having God's favor. God was the one who caused their pain, who caused their situation, who caused, according to the priests, according to society, according to culture, which is the whole ministry of what Jesus went out there to tell them, no, that's not true. That's not the case. And you hear this in the play. You hear this where the main thing that Jesus is saying to them is that you think God is causing your pain. But the reality is that's not true, and that God's favor, God's love, is available for your life. And if you open your heart and open your mind and your eyes, open your spirit, let God's Spirit come into your life, God's love will transform you. It'll change everything about you. And in fact it did. It transformed in exciting and dynamic ways almost everyone that Jesus came into contact with.